Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to chat with you guys about the new year coming up because, as we all know, the new year is prime time to set new goals or New Year's resolutions. And for me, two of the biggest changes that I made to my lifestyle actually happened as New Year's resolutions. And I've been able to make them stick for several years now. And I wanted to share some key things that have helped me stick to these resolutions for several years. So if you're someone who has tried to set New Year's resolutions or new goals in general, but find that you only stick to them for a short period of time, then maybe this will be helpful for you and figure out how to approach the new year a little differently this time. So without further ado, let's talk about it. The first resolution that I had was when I went into 2015. That is so crazy to say, but 2015, my resolution was to start a consistent workout routine. So in order for me to do this, I had to find a workout plan, which I did. I started with the Kayla Itsines Sweat workout programs. I don't remember what they were called way back in the day, but that's what I did. I had to coordinate with my college schedule, and then I just had to follow through. The key to implementing any new habit, especially if it's a routine like a workout routine, these are daily and weekly behaviors that you'll be doing. And you really need to question yourself and ask, why haven't you been able to do this before? Because if you don't understand what keeps tripping you up, it's going to keep tripping you up. So for me, way back in 2015, I was a college student and I had basically no time management skills. And in order for me to be successful in this new goal that I was setting is I needed to understand my schedule. I needed to understand the time demands of that schedule and the time I needed to dedicate to my other priorities. Once I had a good understanding and grasp of the time I needed to invest in these other priorities, the better I could understand what time I had left to spend on creating these new habits and this new routine. The key is figuring out how to integrate both of these things together in a realistic way. I think it's easy to be like, I'm going to work out 6 days a week, I'm going to do all these cardio sessions, workout classes, and yeah, you can do that for a short period of time, but if you have a really busy personal life or work schedule, school schedule, you're going to burn yourself out really quickly. So you have to sprinkle in a little bit of realisticness into this process and be okay with what is realistic for you to do. And I think being realistic is a very common sense thing, but it's also something I see a lot of people overlook and something that I definitely have overlooked for myself as well. Not just being realistic about the time you do have to spend on these new habits and new routines, but you also have to be realistic about how you react when life gets in the way of those things. You have to be realistic about what you expect to happen once you start implementing these new routines, and realistic about what you really want to get out of these new routines or goals that you're setting. It's also getting really specific about what you want to have happen, maybe what results you want, and asking how dependent you are on these results in order for you to move forward. And what I mean by this is if you are starting to implement these goals and routines and new habits because you want six-pack abs, but you don't see six-pack abs in 4 to 8 weeks, is that going to feel discouraging enough for you to give up in general? And also asking where you're getting value from. If you're only going to feel like you're doing a good job and you're valuing these new habits because you're getting six-pack abs, that might just not be enough for you to stick with these new habits. Part of the reason why I've been able to keep up my workout routine for the past 6-7 years now, ever since I started this resolution back in the day, is because I stopped thinking about the abs, I stopped thinking about the butt, and I shifted my focus to, okay, I want to be able to go on leisurely runs without dying. I want to be able to hike outside without hurting myself. I want to be able to lift things and be independent around the house. Being functionally, physically independent is extremely important to me, especially as I'll move throughout my life and get older. Walking upstairs, getting out of a chair, playing with my kid, doing activities outside with them, all of these things require me to take care of my body. So for me, in order to stick to a workout routine for a longer period of time, it was removing any physical results as my prime motivator and shifting to those longer term, more meaningful impacts that moving my body on a regular basis will have for me. It's much more difficult to stick to something if you don't have a deep connection to why you're doing it. Starting a workout routine and being consistent with it is a lot of work. It requires you to build discipline and commitment, dedication to it. And if there's not a meaningful reason behind that, it's much more difficult for you to sustain. And if you don't sustain your efforts, whatever results that you start to see or feel aren't going to be sustainable either. So keeping all these things in mind have really helped me maintain my workout routine. The second time I created a New Year's resolution was going into 2016, and this one wasn't really a resolution, I would say. The timing of it just happened to be around the new year. But this is when Matt and I decided to go like plant-based vegan, and a lot of the things that I talked about with the workout routine do apply here as well. But I think a really important thing to mention is I didn't treat this massive lifestyle change as me starting a new diet. I was just changing my eating pattern. So it was important to Matt and I to no longer eat animal products, and that just brings up the whole point again of making sure that you have some sort of meaning and intention behind why you're making these changes and setting these goals. If it's not important or meaningful to you, then it's not going to stick as well. So at that time in my life, I was all over the place when it came to my nutrition. I felt burnt out, sluggish, discouraged. And every time I went to change my eating habits, it was motivated by me wanting a physical result. But the disconnect here is that physical results can take a good chunk of time and maybe different amounts of time for different people. And many of these dieting approaches can be very difficult to maintain for long periods of time. So like me trying to cut back on how many carbs I was eating when I'm someone who loves and thoroughly enjoys foods with carbs, it was just never going to end well or last very long. Even by the end of 1 or 2 days, I was already overthinking and craving my carbs and trying to grab something to curb the craving. Then I'd feel bad for feeling hungry after eating an amount of food I thought should have filled me up, but it didn't. And just overall thinking that something was wrong with me because I just could not do that. So this particular resolution or goal was really twofold, where yeah, I was changing a lot about the actual food choices I was making, but I also had a lot of mental work that I needed to do as well. Really challenge my thoughts and approaches to why I was doing things a certain way. That way I could start fostering a good, balanced, positive relationship with my food. So a lot like the workout resolution I had with this one, I also had to do a lot of reflecting, thinking about where I had been in the past, what I had already tried, what made me feel good and happy, and again, get deeply connected to my motivation or intentions behind making these changes. And both of these bigger changes that I've made are now 6 or 7 years ago. So I've been through the life happens phases over the years. I've had periods of time where I didn't keep up with things exactly as I envisioned. I've had to step away briefly from my workout routine, again just depending on how my priorities were shifting in those particular time periods. But the difference over these past several years compared to before I had these resolutions is that I had put in the effort and energy into making these things a lifestyle. All of these changes I made were feeling like second nature. They're habits that I now have. I've created the discipline to follow through with them. And because of that, it's easier for me to be flexible when things do happen, when life happens. I also didn't assign any of my worth or value to my ability to stick to 5 workouts a week. And I wouldn't feel like a failure if life happened and it needed me to step away from the gym for a little while. So these are all things to consider when you are approaching this new year. You're thinking about the goals that you want to set, what you want to achieve next year. It's easy to think that you want to achieve X, Y, and Z without considering everything that we've talked about in this video. So to just like sum it all up, you need to have an understanding of your schedule, You need to know where your time is currently going to the priorities and responsibilities that you have now. 2, you need to understand where your free time is, how much of it you have, and how you're currently spending it. And you need to think about how you would rather be spending it so that it can align with your goals or new habits that you want to create. 3, the new goals or habits that you want to start implementing, you have to have a why. You have to assign a deeper meaning to why you want to implement these things or achieve the goals that you've set. If it's not meaningful and important to you, you're probably not going to stick to it. I think we're on number 4. You need to ask yourself where you've been in the past. Like, if you've tried to set New Year's resolutions last year, are you still doing them? If not, ask what happened. And you have to be brutally honest with yourself. You can't sugarcoat anything. You have to really break through the excuses that maybe you had in those moments of, oh, my time, oh, this came up. Really break that down and ask, okay, if time really was my excuse, did I overbook myself? Was I not realistic about what I was able to do? Did I not have as much free time as I thought? Really try to break it down and get as specific as you can. And just looking at 2021 as a whole, ask yourself, what were the good parts? What did you achieve this year that you were proud of? What were the bad parts? What were the challenges and obstacles that you're facing regularly? And most importantly, where do you envision yourself this time next year? Like, how do you want to grow? How do you want to feel? What do you want your lifestyle to look like? And how is that different from where you are right now? I also like to think about some things that I can leave behind in 2021 before I go into the new year. And one thing I really want to work on leaving behind so that I can accomplish my goals in 2022 is doubt. I think this can just come with being indecisive in general. I'm always second guessing, always doubting, and the doubt can really just drag things on and on and on. And I notice that doubt can really keep me in a negative headspace where I'm constantly reminding of the things that are challenging or feel hard or that I'm not good at. So I really want to work on reframing those thoughts so that they're more constructive and positive, because it's not fun to just dwell in negative headspaces. Also, something I don't want you guys to forget is when life happens and you're thrown off of your routine, you aren't hitting the goals that you set, you have 2 options. You can either keep trying and work on figuring it out, or you can give up. Those are really your 2 options. And if the goal is important to you and is meaningful to you to achieve, then you're going to figure it out. You're going to find ways around the obstacles and the challenges because it's important for you to achieve this goal. If it's not important for you to achieve it, you're likely going to give up because it feels easier. So just a little tough love, something to remind yourself of when things go wrong, because they will. And that goes back to asking about this past year, what went wrong, and asking how you reacted to it. Did you tend to give up? Did you push on? Did you make a new game plan? Really figure out your reactions and behaviors, what your tendencies are, adjust those so that they help you achieve your goals. So sure, we can all get our planners out, write down our goals, but a lot of it does happen mentally, and doing a lot of mental reframing, because this is all behavior based. All of these things require action, daily effort, and commitment. Another thing I want you guys to practice for 2022 is doing reflections on a monthly basis. You need to be regularly checking in with how it's going. And I like to do this on a monthly basis because it gives you a good chunk of time for you to actually try implementing a new routine. So if a month goes by, things haven't been going well, you need to ask yourself why that is. You need to figure out what needs to change. Maybe you need to work out one day less. Maybe you need to reorganize your schedule. Something needs to change for the next month so that you don't keep running into the same challenges or obstacles. So if you don't practice monthly reflections, that's something that has been super helpful for me in maintaining these changes in my life. But I hope you guys have really enjoyed this video. I hope it got your gears turning and thinking about what you want to achieve for 2022. And I'll see you guys in my next video.